So this is in the Dungeon Master's Guide. They talk about honor and sanity scores, and here's the weird thing. So if you look at it, it talks about like, oh, they should have an 11 to the array, so that's you can basically have an honor score of about 11. 3 points, that's enough to bring it to 11. Basically, it's the idea of if you're going to add another ability score, there needs to be a place for it. So in DMG, treated as if it's an equal ability score to strength, intelligence, wisdom, etc. But then we keep going, and so it has some interesting flavor where it talks about how it's measuring a character's devotion to a code, what kind of campaigns it fits well in. But yeah, measures your devotion to the code, how you perceive a character's honor, how it's your reputation, and stuff like that. But here's where they just start tearing apart, and it's so strange. Honor can't be raised with normal ability score increases, and you award increases to honor or impose reductions based on characters' actions. So honor changes by actions, not game mechanics. Which, this, and we'll get to it, but at the end of the adventure, if you think a character's actions in the adventure reflected well or poorly on their code, you can increase or decrease the character's honor by 1. As with other ability scores, it cannot exceed 20 or fall below 1. So here's the thing: if it's going to be dropping and stuff like that, so yeah, it can drop, and it can't. Yeah, it could drop, it can increase, and it just can't be upgraded with ability score increases. And so it's not really ability score. It's more of a health total. Like, it's more of just a passive score. It's equivalent to HP or something like that. To passive perception, I'm gonna say. It's just, like, it's an additional tag, which then asks the question of, if this is just an additional tag, why are we treating it as equal? Like, if you got the 11, if you're allowed, like, for example, let's see, right? If you're allowed to get 3 additional points, it is optimal to just let your honor is always optimal to have honor be your dump stat, to basically through the course of adventure become more honorable, to become more of the path. It is, and that's a weird system mechanic where it is not equal. Yeah. And like, you'll see the same thing with insanity, that honor, but I'm going to just talk about honor because honor, I don't run games that do sanity, so I haven't thought through this as much, but honor is not equal to any of the other ability scores. And if that's the case, it shouldn't be an ability score. So, with that, kind of what I want to do, so after saying that, I kind of want to try to make honor ability score. That's kind of what the goal of this video is going to be. We're going to change how some ability scores work. We're going to change what does what, basically, to make honor equal to the other ability scores. So with that, we have to consider what needs to be added. So we're going to need to add class connection. So if every class, like, for example, charisma is very much used with sorcerers. Intelligence is very much used with wizards. Wisdom with clerics. Strength with barbarians. Like, every single ability score has a pretty strong connection to a class in some way or another. So we need to have some sort of class connection. We're going to need consistent saving throws, which honestly, I'm going to say that with a question mark because technically intelligence, charisma, strength, they don't even have the most consistent saving throws. So you can live without that. But you're going to need ability scores. Or you're going to need skills. Sorry, my apologies. You're going to need skills. Sorry, my mind got a little one-tracked right there. And that means we're probably going to have to pry skills from the other options. And really, those are the three things you need to guarantee. It would be good to have an out of game option, but honestly, the out of... So, like, you know how strength affects your carrying capacity, constitution affects your health, stuff like that. Honestly, just by having a game where honor is necessary, the out of game effects are going to be taken care of. So, I'm just going to note that if honor is not important enough to be valuable out just without any additional things, it shouldn't be don't add it to your game. So this is if your game really uses honor. How do we make it strong? How do we connect it to your class? How do we give it somewhat consistent saving throws? And how do we add skills to it? So skills is probably the one I want. That's the easiest for me to tackle. Because as we go in, it actually kind of tells you what honor does. So it measures not only a character's devotion to a code, but also a character's understanding of it. So we already have one skill, the understanding of code, which I would say falls under history. So we pull that pride from intelligence. So that will make int a bit weaker. But then it can also reflect how others perceive a character's honor. And a character with high honor has a reputation that others know about, especially those who have high honor scores themselves. So it's a reputation, it's respect, it's things of that. I would argue that those with high honor scores and stuff, this actually fits into persuasion. So that is taking something from charisma. And then we move on, like if we move to what they say for honor saving throws, resisting the urge to respond to gadding or insults from an enemy, and recognizing when an enemy attempts to trick a character into breach of honor. These two things basically sound a lot like insight. So that is one ability score from each of the mental ability scores, kind of being turned into a skill for honor. In addition, this kind of leaves honor in a very thorough position. Note that the noble background is now an honor-based background. It has history and persuasion. Now, instead of being like intelligence or charisma-based, it is thoroughly an honor-based background, which very much fits for a noble in a game where honor matters. Note that when we are doing this, we are now making it consistent, so ability score increases are going to go into it. It doesn't change. That sort of stuff. So we have our 3 skills. I think 3 skills are enough. This does show what what the option does with 3 skills. Like, keep in mind, persuasion and insight alone is very defining as a character. So just these 2 skills, it's like having stealth and perception. Like, those 2 skills define a character on their own. This might only have 3 skills, but 2 of them are so defining, I think it's alright. Note that this does not rip into charisma, because still, if you want to intimidate a person into doing what you want, if you want to deceive them, those are all charisma. We still have performance. And we're not going... And when we get to the class options, so the next thing we need to do is, let's connect the classes. So once we get into that, not every class needs to suddenly be honor-based. So what classes fit into honor perfectly? So the immediate one that comes to mind is Paladin. So a lot of their charisma-based abilities, I think, could be switched over to honor abilities. To explain, like, they have an oath. Like, every one of their archetypes is called an oath. What is more honor? What is more honor than an oath? So, like, there is no question that Paladin is on the list of a class that is connected by honor. But if you only have one class that's connected by honor, then you have the same issue as the Wizard, where there's no other intelligence-based classes, really, so you can't really switch options. It's either you have a wizard or you don't. It just... So, I think... So we need to ask what other classes could be honor-based. I actually think Warlock could be. So, the whole idea of, like, why is it charisma that affects the Warlock? I guess because it persuades its, the thing it follows into giving it more power, which then, that's the thing. The Warlock gets its power from following something. Therefore, if you listen to it properly, like, honor would be how you connect to it. Like, let's just really quick, let's get to Warlock. But yeah, they are sworn and beholden. That's the very first line. A warlock is defined by a pact with an otherworldly being. Sometimes a relationship is like that of a cleric and a deity. Though beings that serve patrons for warlocks are not gods. They might lead a cult. Like, it's not exactly what you would picture from honor. It's not a royalty sort of thing, but it's definitely honor. It's respect. They are sworn and beholden. Yeah, just right there. Sworn and beholden. So, with that, we now have two honor-based classes. And you might think, okay, but we took them both from charisma. Doesn't that leave charisma short-sticked? Except charisma still has bard, which it makes sense. Bards are kind of, they're performative. They're not really honor-based. They're performance-based. So it makes sense that bard would stay charisma. Sorcerers are all innate magic. It's their own personality shooting through. It could be intimidation, almost, is how I would define it. It is your is your force of presence more than your respect amongst the people. So sorcerer and bard are still thoroughly in charisma, and you're also noticing, as I'm describing this, that there's a bit of an influx of charisma-based classes in the system. Not an issue, just something to consider, so it makes it the easiest place to pry from. So, with that, we have our now connected classes. So then all that's left is saving throws. So with this, let's go back to the Dungeon Master's Workshop. And honor saving throws are, again, avoiding an accidental breach of honor and etiquette, resisting the urge to respond to a go-atting or insults from an enemy. I think that's where we're going to pry onto. So it is resisting an action, is how I would describe it. It's resisting the urge to respond. So that's the phrase I'm going to use. With that, so that kind of connects that this can actually be saves against fear or charm or stuff like that. Is kind of my ideas of what could resist. So like fear kind of your response against fear is to run away. Your response against charm is to not attack, to fight. But let's say your honor says you're going to respect. You're going to stand and fight because you're an honorable soldier. You're going to you're going to defeat the enemy because your honor says they must be defeated. You can't just let go because your charm is affecting you, you know? So in that way, I think just fear and charm added to the saving throws is good enough. But then that takes it from wisdom, is worth noting. So it is worth noting that if honor is valuable, these sort of things might already be enough for an honor saving throw to be worthwhile. But otherwise, wisdom is already a jam-packed... Actually, no, dexterity and constitution are the two jam-packed saving throws. But wisdom is still more packed than intelligence or charisma. And I don't see how we can get the physical saves there to be pulled into honor. So, with that, we now have a pretty thorough system. Like, so we have two classes that directly key off of honor. We have a full set of skills that key off of honor. And we even have something that saves. And like, I think this might be limited, but I think fear and charm are common enough that would make sense in the world. It does have the effect that, like, the spell Charm Animal might... Let's just talk about the last consequences. So they usually say that enemies that do not have honor... So yeah, you use charisma for honor for enemies that do not have... monsters that do not have those effects. So I just want to think about the spell. I think it's called Charm Animal or Charm Beast. There's also Animal Friendship. That's the name of the spell. Animal Friendship. So Animal Friendship basically becomes a very powerful spell because it is moved from a Wisdom save to, if not an Honor save, a Charisma save, which means that you'd basically be... Animal Friendship would be a 100% success rate, almost. If you look at animals, their average Charisma is like 3. It's not as bad as... Okay, no, maybe not 3, more like 6, but it's still a penalty, usually. Basically, it's not as bad as Intelligence, but their Wisdoms are often like +1, and their Charismas are often -1 or -2. So we would have to like implement Honor in the animal, which might take some... So implement it in some enemies. Honor equals threat equals, or what I would say is ownership territory, I guess would be it. So like a territorial animal would probably have more honor than like a bird that just flies south for the winter and just does its own thing. Basically, honor would be how thoroughly kept it treats its own respect versus just running away, cowarding, stuff like that. Which would mean that most of the threats that attack you have a high honor. But like a swarm of bats or something like that, maybe a swarm doesn't have that sort of effect. But yeah, with that, so that is one of the main consequences you'd have to concern yourself with of how this system can be abused. Mostly with the saving throws here. Again, if you're using honor, these saving throws options might just be good enough. And by the way, my idea is that Warlock and Paladin would replace their Charisma saving throws with proficiency with Honor saving throw proficiency. I don't think you need a 3rd saving throw per class or anything like that. I think 2 is still enough. So anyways, maybe you have a different way of using Honor. Maybe this is what you're looking for. This is kind of an idea I had because I kind of want to use an honor-based system, and I really disliked how this worked in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So I thought I'd bring it up. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, I hope you have a